On the topic of inspiration, our next speaker finds creative inspiration all around him daily and seems to be a virtual font of endless inspiration for others. He calls himself a technology evangelist and a skeptic. I would describe him as a thought leader, teacher, and a digital change agent. I would also add that I am delighted to now call him friend. He spent 20 years as a member of the journalism faculty at Columbia Journalism School and became that university's first chief digital officer. He is currently the first CDO at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where he runs a 70-person startup inside a 145-year-old organization, driving a cutting-edge digital strategy and engaging audiences worldwide. This year, he was named to Fast Company's list of 100 most creative people in business. Honestly, he has earned so much recognition and so many awards for his work that it would take me the rest of this night to name them all. I also want to mention that he was the inspiration behind Princeton Social Media Day. And for that, I owe him a huge debt of gratitude. We are so very fortunate to have Sree Sreenivasan with us this evening and all day tomorrow, sharing his expertise. Please join me in welcoming Sree Sreenivasan.
Hi, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to follow what was a fantastic panel. I hope you all took notes as I did, and I learned so much from the conversation. One of the things you heard was that Jeremy Kaplan has a great list of tools to know about. So I hope you'll pick this up. Otherwise, you can find it online at bit.ly/cooltool16. And if you, I'm going to just keep one aside for me. So I hope you'll take a look, bit.ly/cooltool16. Otherwise, just ask at Jeremy Kaplan to share them with you. So having thought about and gotten a lot of guidance from our speakers, I thought what we do for the next half an hour or so is try to give you as many practical tips to improve your social media so that you can leave here tonight with some new ideas and things that you can implement. In addition to Jeremy being here and being a resource for you from Princeton, I'm just delighted to see in the audience my friend Gianni Riota, who's here. Gianni is a Princeton grad who is very much involved in teaching and the education part of Princeton, but is also a great Italian journalist, and his Twitter handle is at RIOTTA, and I hope you will follow him. And he's an example of every time I tell people about knowing social media, he came to take a class in social media, and he has hundreds of thousands of followers, but he's humble enough to say when he wants to learn something, and I've learned so much from him. So Gianni, it's great to have you here. And so we're going to try to make this as interactive as possible, take your questions, and share as many tips as we can in as short a time as possible. I have posted the slides to my talk on the hash PU Social Day hashtag. So if you want to leave right now, you can, because you have the slides already. But the link is just bit.ly/3slides, and that's maybe the first tip today is you saw Jeremy using it, I'm using it. If you don't have a personal Bitly account, you should create one. It's a free account, and you can then have these shortcuts to the things you want to remember, like your presentations and other things. So create a Bitly account. What might be useful today is to take a sheet of paper and write down things I want to try soon, try later, might be a second column, so you have two columns, and an action list of things you want to try. You might want a third column saying, I can't believe Ava and company brought this guy to come all the way to Princeton, and not a good use of our time. Just make some notes is all I ask. I'm not presenting from my laptop today, but I'm presenting from my phone in order to make a point that we are living in a world where everything is mobile, and we're too tied to these laptop computers, including me at work. I'm all the time on the laptop, but I'm trying to do more and more on cell phones. And I encourage you to, if you present, if you do things, to get one of these adapters so that you can also think about doing this. But it's really because the world has changed so much. One of the things I learned is that the Today Show's traffic to their main website, 73% of it comes from online, people accessing it via mobile. So what are we doing, all of us, to adjust to the mobile world? We say things are mobile first, but we're not doing anything about it for the most part. So this is my doing for this year, is to do almost every presentation I've done publicly via my phone. The New York Times did something brilliant where at the headquarters they shut down access to the desktop computer for access to the desktop version of the New York Times website for staff. And it really scared a lot of people. But the reason is they're saying our folks are consuming content on mobile, but we're producing it all on desktop. Let's try to live in that world. It was just a week, and it caused a lot of consternation, as you can imagine. In addition to the slides, which I have, there are also a couple of things that you may want to check out and you might find useful. Once you have this link for bit.ly/3slides, you can click anywhere on any of the links and you have access to anything I've posted on here. And you'll see at the bottom right, it says my closed Facebook group. It's called Sree's Advanced Social Media. Any of you who are interested in really getting better at social, you should think about joining that group. It's not great because I'm involved. It's great because we have about 1,500 people from around the world, including Jeremy, Gianni, and others, who answer questions, share comments about what's happening in the social media world. So you just ask to join, and I'll add you. On Facebook, you find it by just searching Sree's Advanced, Sree''S, Advanced Social Media. You'll find it there, and you can ask to join that. Whenever I speak, I always talk about ABC, and the first is to always be charging your phone. And I know that some of you might have forgotten your charger. So if you've forgotten your charger and you need to plug in, you can do that. I carry an extra charger everywhere I go. It's a good way to make friends at airports and other places. Second ABC is always be connecting. And this is the importance of social media, where you can connect with people who you don't know through social media. And I think universities have really understood in dealing with alumni the importance of using social in a smart way to connect with alumni, with donors, and other people. And what I like to say is, don't be an ask on social media. Don't let the first time I hear from you or anyone hears from you be something you're asking for on social media. You're asking for a favor or a request. Social media allows you to connect with people at a kind of low-touch level. And someone, when I said this in Germany, someone tweeted, Sree says, don't be an ass on social media. I didn't say that, but that also works. So there was I said don't be an ask on social media, but that works as well. And then finally, always be collecting is about using your phone to take pictures of interesting slides or things you see around you. And the reason to do that is to get in the habit, especially those of you who are going to be journalists or interested in journalism. Your phone becomes a great notebook. You have the slides, but giving you 40 slides is like giving you 400 slides. You'll never look at them again. So think about ways in which you can access the slides at the, the images, so you can look at them when you're in the doctor's office, waiting at the dinky, et cetera, et cetera. Whenever I speak, I try to remind people of this great journalist, David Carr, whose Twitter handle was Cartoon, Carr, the number 2N, who was such a successful columnist, but very smart about understanding how we all use technology. And this is a video from TEDx Pointer about 3 years ago before he died. And he reminds us, especially those of us who are going to be at tomorrow's all-day session doing social media, he says, the most interesting device here is the person next to you. And don't forget to connect with people and not just thinking about kind of content. And he says, also, don't spend all your time creating content that you don't consume any of it. You should know that I'm the 84,000th most important person on Twitter. This is according to Twitter Counter. And that means that Ava and company were really desperate. They couldn't get the 83,000th most important person to come and speak to you. Now, when I was young, I wanted to be a millionaire. I just didn't know it would be an unread Gmail messages. As you can see here, someone said, "Is this really your email inbox?" And it really is. And it's actually much worse now. I must have taken this in June. About 1.1 million unread Gmail messages. But you know what's really tragic are the drafts, the unsent drafts. Imagine how much better my life would be if I'd actually sent all those drafts. I'd be making a lot more money. There'd be some prince from abroad who would be sending me a fortune, making me rich, people who could help me, and I miss them all. So it's not because I'm so important that I'm showing you this. This is what we're trying to do, is how do we get to people? How do we get people's attention? And that's what social media can do for us. Tomorrow at my session, I'll be sharing what I've learned about social and digital and mobile media working at the Met. But for tonight, I want to really focus on some practical tips for you to be just smarter at what you're doing online. And here's Gianni's already taken a picture. I hope somebody took a picture of Gianni taking a picture of that. So I'm going to just switch out of my slides, which you can see at any point, and take you to my Twitter feed and just talk about how we can all think about improving our own Twitter feeds. What can we do to make our Twitter better? And then we'll do that for Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and then we'll go home. So on the question of Twitter, the first thing is to think about 3 branding opportunities that you have. 3 branding opportunities. One is the bio, the second is the photograph you have up there, and then the third is the big photograph, or the kind of header image. And I don't think that all of us use those 3 spaces as well as we could. The photograph is pretty simple. Make it a recent, recognizable photo of you, not you as a child, not you with your child, not you with the president, but just you, so that people can recognize you. The second is that space up there, which is over here, can become a place for you to post anything you like. And I actually learned from Jeremy, he created a collage many years ago of his bylines in Time magazine and put them up there. And that was a very smart thing. He did that, I think, on Facebook or on Twitter. I can't remember. But it was a very nice way to kind of, again, get your brand out there. And third is this space here, the bio section. And you'll be surprised how much you can actually squeeze in there. You can see I have 3 different URLs, my podcast, my Instagram link, something about the Met, and then as well as my personal website. And I put in my email address. As you've learned, there's probably no point emailing me, but I'm going to give you my email address anyway, Sree@Sree.net. Sree.com is a chain of motels in Florida, so you don't want that. Or maybe you do. And think about how you can make this little section here as interesting and useful as possible. And to do that, make it your best current you. That means make it something that you edit on a regular basis. Every 6 months, every year, you're doing interesting projects, add them, delete them as it makes sense. Then as we think about the tweets we're sending, whatever we're posting, the use of this pinned tweet idea, I think, is really important. We've come up with a new digital strategy at the Met, and I've pinned that tweet right to the front of my Twitter feed, right on top. And we're hiring people and stuff like that. So now, instead of sending out links to people, I let's say just go to the top of my Twitter feed and you can find all the jobs at the Met that we're talking about. So using that pinned tweet, I think, is something that's useful to do. Another thing that I always think about is when you're posting something, you're really, it's going to reflect on you, no matter how much you might think that retweets don't reflect on you. They're actually about other people. They reflect on you. So everything you post, you should think about. Trish, I think, scared a lot of people, and I thought that was a good thing when she said, be very careful about what you post. I spend 3 to 6 minutes on every post I write. That means I don't have a real life. But I do that because social media is the one thing I do today that can get me fired today. Social media is the one thing I can do today that can get me divorced today. So I think about what I'm posting, what I'm sharing, and being really careful. And you also heard from from Eric that everything you post is going on to places like the Library of Congress. And so what that means is that really think about your content, what you're posting, what it says about you, and really think about what you're posting. So I saw this on one of the, Tricia, I was just saying that thank you for scaring everybody. You made my job easier. It was very, but it's very important for us to, I spend 3 to 6 minutes on every tweet I write, just thinking along the same lines. And Josh Davidson wrote this little tweet where it says, your smile is a logo, your personality is your business card, and the way you make others feel is your trademark. And another way to think about this is that everything you do online is your brand, is going to be amplified, and people are going to be thinking about you. One of the nice things that in the Twitter change that has happened in recent months, you can, if you see a tweet, you have now all this extra space on top to really spell out what you mean or how this connects to what you're thinking about. So I think that's helpful and something that you can do. Whenever I'm posting content, I use a little social media formula in my head that I will share at the end of our session, because if I share it now, you will leave. So I'm going to keep that. But basically, think about what you're posting and think about it from your audience point of view. What are you going to be posting about? What is your content? And will people care about what you're posting? So I post a lot about digital technology, about things that are helpful to people. And here we see a little post about the power of images and infographics. Visual content receives 2 times the number of likes and 5 times more shares than text. So what are we doing to post things with text, with photos? And I want to remind you how easy it is now to put 2, 3 pictures very easily. You know, you can grab stuff here. There's those cakes. I hope you all got some. Right? It's so easy to do this with the still picture. So always think about having a photograph. Doesn't mean everything needs a photograph, but always think, is there a photograph you can add to it? What's also changed that's terrific is that now you can shoot and edit video inside a tweet in a way that you couldn't before. How many of you have done this, where you've edited and shot inside a tweet? There you see a couple of hands go up. So I'm going to show you how easy this is, and it changes the way we communicate. So for example, I just switch here. So this is inside a tweet. I pick the camera, and then I'm going to make it a video. And this is, by the way, going to be a really boring video, so hold us here. So here I'm shooting a few seconds. Everybody watching here, let me go in here, shoot a little more. Let me take a pan of this room and maybe my connector here. All right, so you've seen I've taken these 4 clips. Does everybody see that? And I can hit done, and this becomes a little video clip with audio. And you can see how that works, right? So that's certainly not very good video, but it's a start. But here's the magic of this. If I don't like this clip, I can toss it in the garbage right there. Or I can move it and edit right there. 30 seconds of video. Doesn't sound like a lot, but what is that? That's 5 times the length of a Vine. And it really changes how you get content out there. So you're shooting and editing inside of a video file on Twitter. So think about how you can add those skills and use the simple ways in which Twitter makes this possible. Take advantage of that to do it. Any questions about that particular idea? But think about how you can kind of mix and play with those with that particular idea. And you can see here posting pictures whenever you can, and mixing it up with various things, and having a different one guideline that I give people is that think about having 1 in every 5 tweets be about you and your personal work and your personal kind of all about you, and make the rest of the content be about other people, other content, and be a great pointer on Twitter. Point to other people. Another formula that some people use is 4-1-1, which is out of every 6 tweets, make 4 tweets be about other people, other content, other kind of work. And then 1 could be a really sophisticated piece that you put together, that a tweet that you've taken very seriously and put a lot of effort into. And then the final one would be something very personal that you care about. So that 4-1-1 is another formula. All of this is to say, don't make it all about you. And when I say 1 in every 5 should be about you, I know most people will do 4 out of 5. But even if you reduce that by 1, you'll see you'll become a more interesting person because you're sharing interesting things. And I encourage you to think about it that way. In terms of Twitter, one other idea I have for all of you is how do we get attention to the tweets we create? And one of the ways to do that, a very simple way, is to do what I call the sharing game. And that is that find a bunch of like-minded people and share with them content using the new feature within Twitter, the newish feature within Twitter, which is that you can share via direct message. And what I mean by that is, let's say there's this particular tweet I want to share. I hit this button and share via direct message. We should be doing a lot more of this. But if you get a group of people, let's say communicators across Princeton, all of you get together and say, we're going to create a sharing game. What that'll mean is, I'm going to share this item here, and I have several different groups of people that I share content with. So for example, we have an organization called SAJA, South Asian Journalists. And this is several people who I can share something with right away, and they all see it inside their Twitter feed, and it makes it much more interesting and useful for them because they can like, share, and do it right within their Twitter itself. The other way to do it is to create this group and then have each of you put in your best tweet of the day into that group so that everybody promises to share it that way. And Gianni and I do that with another group, and a lot more people are seeing our content because we're all invested in sharing that content. If I wasn't absolutely clear with this, because I'm trying to be fast, you can come and talk to me afterwards, and I'm happy to share ideas on that with you. Here's something funny that's happened with the Moments. Are you all seeing the Moments feature? Many people like it. Some of them are ambivalent to it. But here's something funny that happens if you're not careful. Let's say you're looking at this particular piece, and you know that they run it full video like this, and then you have to tap it like that if you want to, oops, sorry. Now watch, I won't be able to do this. Oops. When you don't want the video to be full. Okay, yeah, this is exactly the problem. When you're tapping this, it automatically likes the tweet when you didn't intend to. So you might be reading something from Donald Trump, and you meant... You've done that, yeah. Yeah.
And I was horrified because liking like one of the most racist things that he apparently said.
So be really careful when you're on when you're on here. When you don't mean to like something, you could end up liking it. So just a practical thing for you to think about. Next, let's get a couple of Twitter questions in, and then we'll move to Instagram. Twitter questions from anybody? Twitter, any thoughts or any suggestions? What's your favorite Twitter tip that you would like others to know? Yes, please.
Do you have a quota for the day? Do you try to? I'm not going to give away internal recommendations, but there are media groups, lots of them, that want you to have a social media presence daily and require a minimum amount of tweeting and Facebooking because it works. And so I'm curious, if you're interested in promoting your brand, how often
if it's on a personal level, I think you've got to post at least once a day. I try to post, 3, depending on how much energy, time, effort you make, that if this is important to you, you should be doing it 3 to 10 times a day, but in a 24-hour period. I don't mean them all at kind of one time. But whenever I say that, people hear the 10 and go crazy. But there are other people who easily post 40 a day. Depends on what your brand is, how much you want to post out there, and is every piece of content worth sharing would be my question as well. I'd love to hear from anyone else here. Jeremy, what do you do? How many do you post a day? That works great. Johnny?
Now you juggle different heads on the social
Yeah, it's, thank you for noticing, but this is what a student of social media will understand, that we're all wearing different hats, and we have to decide what we want to share and when we share it, at what time we share it. At the Met, for example, it turned out that we were sharing between like 9 and 5 or 9 and 7 every day, but there's a whole audience that is interested internationally, so we started posting during the overnight, early morning when Europe's awake, and it turned out it really added a lot of audience to us. In my own case, I schedule things to go live at about 2 a.m. because that takes you to, in India and South Asia, there's a big audience always, kind of prime time there. So you have to decide what kind of makes sense for you and when and what to post at what time. But that's sort of one of the things that I think about with Twitter. Any other Twitter comments or questions before we go to Instagram? Then sorry, Eric, go ahead.
Seriously, could we just get some mic elevation here? I think
you didn't have to be so tall, you know.
I know, sorry, man. It's always the tall people problems. Hashtag, please. You're saying about like volume and all that, and obviously everyone's goal in the room is to get rate limited on Twitter. If you don't know what that means, if you go to an event and there's a hashtag, and you should aim to do this where you tweet too much, and Twitter will actually shut you down, using like TweetDeck or Hootsuite or something. So, you've got to have some goals in life. The other thing is, I have just sort of never had a formula with life, work, whatever. I just sort of call it fortunate accidents, sort of a series of them, which has led me to where I'm at right now. Iowa kid, now at Princeton, living in London. It's a story that makes total sense. I think you tweet, especially if you're sort of an individual and you're either a blogger or you're a sort of professional, official journalist, it's almost got this sort of tension against sort of what we've been socialized with when it comes to what is professionalism. And I think that's something that we could, that's hours of discussion right there. But I like to look at the big brands. Look at Starbucks, right? Starbucks tweets a ridiculous amount of times throughout the day. I mean, at Starbucks, because customers and everything, and people are coming at them, and customers either love Starbucks or they hate them. There's not a lot of middle ground. But if you look at sort of what they post, they'll post like one thing throughout the day that everybody can see. But they'll communicate with all of us at that engagement level, which I think that's really that's the power of social, right? Not just the push, not just the content share, but it's the engagement with every single one of you at the table that we all won't see that, right? Tweet at each other, whatever, but maybe just one or two a day if you want, that everybody can see.
That's great. I think that's really good advice and something that you folks can think of. Remember I said always be connecting? This is where if you see we talk about somebody who's great, just tweet at them and just say, hi, we're talking about you at Princeton Social Day, and suddenly they're dragged onto the campus here. And I love this from Alexia, who's a terrific follow on Twitter. She's a TechCrunch reporter, and she says this about what you want to do. She also had another great tweet. You hope it works out with your boyfriend, but there's a chance it won't work out.
That's true. They want you to put NBC in your Twitter so they get the points for it. And they want, I worked at Fox and I worked at ABC and affiliates, and I've left Twitters behind. I've left brands behind. I've started all new Twitter accounts, and I finally have a Twitter account that is generic.
Brand free. You're the brand.
I'm Tisha on TV, because there's a lot of Tishas out there. One piece of advice that I have gotten, I think it's out there, I'm not giving away state secrets, is people hate it when you tease something and don't give them any information. You actually get a lot of Twitter backlash, and that's difficult for journalists because you want people to read what you're doing, but you don't want to tell them what you got, but you want them to tune in the TV world. So that's been a real struggle for people who are trying to build anticipation, that you have to give them a little bit of something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's not hard to do, because you can, especially if you're doing television, you can give us a snippet or more than you would otherwise.
Except all
especially-
my followers are other reporters. Truly. I mean, in the journalism world, most of your followers are other reporters who want to make sure they haven't missed something.
At least somebody's reading it as well.
You have a way cooler Twitter world.
Let's talk a little bit about Instagram. One of the things we did at the Met was our director is on Instagram, Thomas P. Campbell. I hope you'll follow him. And he was named one of the 23 best art Instagrams in the world while he was on an iPhone 4S. And he's now on a 6, so it's really dangerous what he can do. So a couple of thoughts for journalism and Instagram. I think the simplest thing is the value of Instagram is that you can edit those captions. You couldn't do that before. You can't do that on Twitter. You can do that on Facebook, but you can't do that on Instagram. What can we do to make sure as journalists that when you post something, you really dig in and put accurate information in those bios? You might have seen one organization that does this really well is Natural Geographic. They have these paragraphs of captions, and they do it very, very well. So think about adding and being able to edit your Instagrams. Another thought that I have in practical way is when you're holding when you want to post on Instagram, let's say this is the picture you want to use, you have all these filters, right? You all notice these filters at the bottom, so many of them. They all kind of have, some of them have memorable names, but most are not memorable names, and you don't remember what they do. One of my favorites is 1977. That tells you what it is, and it works because it's a great year. But here's what I recommend you do on Instagram is go to the very end of your of the list of filters, click on Manage. Everybody with me? And then you can take the ones you like and move them to the very top so that your 5 favorite ones are together in front. Does that make sense to everybody? And then you can turn off the ones you don't want. Do you see this? And now when you go back in, your 5 favorites are right up front, and the ones you know you're going to use every day. So I recommend you do that with your Instagram. And the other feature, there's so many features that you can use. One of them is to get into your. Do you see the wrench there? If you click on the wrench and you go all the way to the right, there's a section called Tilt Shift. And Tilt Shift allows you to really play with focus and do things here. So for example, I can put the focus right on Eric and then make everybody else out of focus, or put that on Trish. So you can do things like that with your photographs and have some fun with it. So those are a couple of things I recommend on Instagram. Let's get some other Instagram tips from others before we move to Facebook. Any Instagram tips? Jeremy, you'll have some cool ones.
Just 2 accounts, the BBC and Now This News are both fantastic, and the thing that they do that's great is they use very large text. It turns out a lot of people use Instagram video without sound, Facebook video as well, and they use very large text. Even if you have the sound, they're just great large captions, and both those accounts are great models.
Yeah, that's great, and that importance of having audio and creating videos that work with the audio off. And that's what you can also do on Twitter is that video you create that's 30 seconds for Twitter, make sure the first 15 seconds are really good so you can put that on Instagram. In terms of, let's move from here to Facebook. And I just wanted to talk for a minute about a newish app that they've released called Mentions. Anyone here seen that or using that? So what happens is Mentions is part of a rollout that they're doing to everybody, and it allows you to do the following thing. You get your status, photo, video, but here are the 2 things at the bottom that I think all journalists will find very useful. One is live video. You can shoot and broadcast live video, right? I'm not going to do it, but you can just hit go live, and suddenly you have a live thing that's on Facebook, and then people comment right there, and you have live interaction. You're really broadcasting to the world, and so I recommend being prepared for that when it comes. Why it's better than Periscope in my mind is that it's that entire Facebook community audience you have, plus it is archived forever on Facebook. You can delete it if you want to, but I think that's really good. I am a fan of Periscope, and I do use it, but if you are using Periscope, I have a tip for you on that, and that is when you launch on Periscope, before you hit publish and you start the Periscope, put the hashtag catch with a K, hash catch at the end of your Periscope. It will automatically put permanently on the cloud a version of your video on a website called catch.me, again with a K. So I'm catch.me/Sree. And if you don't want that video permanently, you can delete it, but at least you have the option. I would hate for you to get a great Periscope, has something important, newsworthy, and then you have to, it's gone forever. So using hash catch puts it on there. Hashtag catch. You don't need to create the KATCH. It will create a free account on catch.me/Trish on TV. And then you can choose to delete them after anytime you want. But at least you have the option. Don't leave it to Periscope to luck with it. Who owns it? That's a great question. That's a great question. But I've seen catches on TV. People have posted them on there. So you would read through the stuff on there. Anything else about Periscope? If anybody wants to say that, yeah.
Local reporters have been fired already for periscoping what they were doing at night.
Have been fired?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, they're very serious in local TV news, aren't they? All right, and now we're going to do two more things, and then we're done. On Facebook, I just want to, the other part apart from the live video, the other thing you can do on Facebook is the Q&A. And so that's a great way to have a conversation, to build a community with your audience. You write an article and then say, I'll take questions either through the video or through Q&A, I think is a good way to do that. On Facebook, I want to just emphasize that if you're using Facebook, you're posting things on Facebook, the use of the groups, I think, is still very important. And that when you're sharing content, really look at your privacy settings. It seems obvious, but I find a lot of journalists posting things without caring about the privacy settings. And also, the search functionality on Facebook is constantly changing. But it's a great way if you create subgroups of audiences, either for you to search or posting content that's seen by specific audiences. I think it works well. Let's get a Facebook tip from somebody. Jeremy, Facebook tip? I'm always happy to put you on the spot because you'll have something. Yeah.
One nice thing is the graph search and using it to find friends, pictures that your friends have taken in London or whatever. You can sort of narrow your search within the Facebook world using multiple search parameters, search limiters, basically.
Sure. Thank you. You had a comment?
Just one question. How do you see, I know like for me professionally I have like a Facebook page, and I have like my personal Facebook. What are the differences between the two? Which one do you think is better to leverage?
Sure. So everyone understood the question. She has a Facebook professional page, and then she has a profile. I have a Sree Tips page, which is on technology tips, and people post there, and I post there. But my main account is my profile, and so I've changed my use of this over time. Eric said, we're in dog years of Facebook is a long time. That I'm putting all my emphasis really on the profile and having people, adjusting how public I make something, and the rest, and because you get many more followers and much more content feedback on that than you do on the profile. So that's just my thought. Anybody else going the other way on that? Trish? No, please keep talking. Thank you. Our presentation.
I think living in Washington, D.C., in the land of the federal government, I think it's important to always remind people, even grown-ups who aren't in college anymore, that just because it's your private Facebook page doesn't mean that your comments won't become public.
Oh, yeah.
And we've had quite an alarming number of people who've lost their jobs for saying their political opinions on their private Facebook page, or talking about what they think about their boss, or saying, hey, look at me at the beach, when they were actually, supposed to be at work sick and they sicked out. That kind of stuff, just because you have a private Facebook page doesn't mean it's private. Your opinions are still public.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that then can put you into the territory of I get them mixed up. I think it's libel, because you've now broadcast, what's libel? What's the other one? Slander. One of them is communicating an untruth to a second, or to a third party. And by posting it on Facebook, if you're saying something bad about a company or a person, you have committed, I believe it's slander. And now you are legally liable.
Thank you. We also saw that Mark Zuckerberg's sister thought she was posting a photo of the family at Thanksgiving, and she put it on private settings, but it went out to the world. So if Mark Zuckerberg's sister cannot figure out Facebook settings, we have no hope. So just remember that. Let's move on to LinkedIn, because I think LinkedIn is greatly underappreciated as a tool for all the things we're talking about, especially for journalists. I don't pay for the upgraded version, but I don't pay for it so that I can teach people what you can do for the unpaid version. But I really recommend using it, and especially if you're job hunting, doing that. You can upgrade and downgrade. It's a price of a couple of cups of coffee every month. It's really worth it. But look at the kinds of things you can learn about what people are saying about you, what they're seeing about you. And 328 viewers found you from someone similar to you, where people are from, how many people who saw my account have the title founder or partner. These are all useful insights as you're trying to kind of figure out what's happening in LinkedIn. My top LinkedIn tips are to make sure you use the summary part of LinkedIn. So write a good, strong headline about yourself, and then use the summary section so that people can understand who you are. I spoke yesterday to a career coach who was saying you've got the top 1/3 of your LinkedIn are so important. That summary is where people are looking and deciding whether to read the rest of your LinkedIn. So please go into that and double check what you've written there. And then when you're accepting, when you have requests from folks, when you ask to connect with people, really look to see what you're posting, how people see you. And so, for example, I'm looking up here at Stephen. Sure, is a perfectly nice person, but no photograph, right? Today, this day and age, you need to have a photograph. And this is a young person, like we think, again, all the 20-year-olds know exactly what's happening. We have to all kind of think about how and what we're saying in there. I think it's really important to have a photograph when you're connecting with people. And you can view your connections, look at them on LinkedIn. And again, with LinkedIn, it should reflect your best current you. Keep it updated and build your network when you don't need it so that it's useful when you need it. And because so much of what we talk about is for career services, I want to show you that LinkedIn launched a new app yesterday. And that app is LinkedIn Jobs. So I'm just going to click on this here. And it's a new smart way to create alerts for the industries you're interested in, the jobs you're interested in, the kind of places you want to work. You can track them here. You can get notifications. You can discover jobs. You can search all of that stuff. And this has just been launched. So please check it out. The other section I recommend, I'm sure Princeton has great tools within the ecosystem of Princeton, but also check out the LinkedIn/alumni pages to just see all the folks within other classes, and to connect with alumni. They're so useful. So I think more of us should be practicing and using LinkedIn when we don't need it so that it's there when we need it. A couple of LinkedIn tips and then we're done for the day. Anybody want to share something? Yes, Eric, please.
I'm a total LinkedIn nerd. I've got 6 LinkedIn apps on my phone.
6 LinkedIn. See,
LinkedIn, regular, unleaded, premium. No, LinkedIn Jobs, Pulse, Connected, Groups, and Lookup. There's the whole, everybody's getting into sort of like Facebook at work, and what is it, Slack. And LinkedIn has their kind of version of that as well. By the way, I'm going to throw you under the bus. You don't even have the latest version of LinkedIn on your phone. It's highly disappointing to me as I looked at the interface. LinkedIn Connected for sort of maintaining those relationships, because again, you get like 500, 600, 1,000 connections on LinkedIn. It's hard to really know what's actually really happening, so you can congratulate people, kind of ping them and say, hey, good job with your new position. LinkedIn Groups is literally just groups, because there's a lot of good dialogue and really cool things happening on groups. And then LinkedIn Lookup, which is for people who are part of sort of an organization. For example, I can see what's happening with just inside higher ed staffers. So it's really cool to sort of get that granular level of LinkedIn-ness.
And so that last one is called LinkedIn Lookup, but everyone has to be on that version or what?
Yeah, so the app basically just sort of authenticates you, and you have to have an email with the organization. So you have to, in this case, have an @insidehighered.com email to authenticate as being part of Inside Higher Ed. And then you can just see what everybody at Inside Higher Ed is doing specifically.
Perfect.
And you can do some group back and forth too, just so like in-group dialogue, kind of like Facebook at work, which is sort of like Facebook
Sure.
without my mom.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
You can also get the premium service upgrade for free as a journalist.
If you join LinkedIn for Journalists and you attend their once a year seminar, they give you 1 year of LinkedIn for free.
But I haven't done it because then I'm taking money from a group that I might cover.
So there you go.
I mean, truly, you gotta think it through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Free service.
All right, so as we're winding up here, I just wanted to give you a couple of final thoughts. I always encourage you to add different ways that social media is changing the world, and I'm sure you're familiar with many of these. Any other things you would want people to read to keep up with social? Any tools you want to recommend?
There's a journalism organization called Carr. It's the National Institute of Computer Assisted Reporting.
Yep.
Which is an outdated name for some pretty amazing stuff that's happening. And if you follow along with them, they're always putting out just the most cutting edge ways to mine social media, how to use social media, very similar to what it changes so quickly.
Yeah.
As you heard, I didn't know something. So,
Yeah.
and I go to these things like at least once a month.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sustainable social media, there are all these apps that you can use to manage your account. I learned of Nutshell Mail from Jeremy. What it does is once a day it sends you all your social media mentions. In a single email it puts it in, and it's very, very helpful. So check that out. And Bliss Control helps you keep up with all the changes and when you want to change things. And now finally, I'm going to give you our social media formula so that you can be all better at social media. And to make this effective, I think we're going to say these words out loud together as if we're in a Baptist church on Sunday, led by a Hindu priest. Now, someone like Jeremy and Gianni have done this, Ava have done this multiple times, but it's always good practice. So this is my formula, and we're going to say these words out loud together. Are you ready? Are you ready? Ready. All right. Okay, we're going to say these words together. So let's get started with the word helpful, okay? Helpful. Louder. Can't hear you. Sing it, sister. Say it, brother. Hallelujah. Amen. That's how we do it in a Baptist Hindu church. I don't know if you've been to one. This is the formula. It doesn't mean all your posts have to be all of these things, but all your posts have to be some of these things. And if you think about this is not really a social media success formula. This is really a life success formula. And if you can find the right things here at the right times, I think you'll be really, really successful on social. And I want to give you one final website that I use all the time to find influential people following you. And I think this might be one of the most useful things I show you. And it's called Triangulate. Has anyone here seen that? So Triangulate gives you a list of your 100 most influential followers. You'll say, well, what's the point of that? It's great to have thousands and hundreds of thousands of followers, but what really counts are influential people following you. On social, it's not who follows you that matters, it's who follows you that matters. And so when you go into Triangulate, so for example, we did UN Social Media Day, and at the UN, the main @UN account has 3 million followers, but their top 100 followers have 300 million followers. So that doesn't mean that the other 3 million people aren't important, but those top 100 people, what are you doing to connect with them, share their content, have them share your content? Because the most powerful connection you have is the ability to direct message them. So it'll also show you who your 100 followers are. It'll also show you who's missing. Sometimes you'll find that you're a major, your account, but some of your friends are not following you. If you're a university, your top alumni are not following you. So sometimes it's helpful to find who's following you and then who's not following you. So that's called triangulate. So with that, we're going to stop here, and I'll stick around if you have a couple of questions afterwards. But thank you so much for your time and your attention, everybody. Good night.
Amazing as always, sir, and he will be back all day tomorrow for another round of tips and tactics and trends and inspiration. So tomorrow morning we begin at 8 a.m. with a Sree-led tour of our art museum. So I invite you all back again tomorrow, and thank you to Evelyn for videotaping this entire presentation for all who were not able to join us tonight, and hopefully we'll see them all tomorrow, and all of you. Thank you.